All right, back again today. Definitely getting a bit of a late start today, but my plan is to stay up and work through the night into the submission period. So we're going to hope that that goes well and that the gameplay doesn't give me too many issues. Potentially have someone that's going to be willing to help beta test later today. Not sure whether or not that's going to go through, but I need to try and get as much of the gameplay done before then as possible. Now, after the stream last night, I did make some updates to the code. Where I left off, I was struggling a bit with how I wanted to handle the bank and the store mechanics because they also need to connect to the HUD and to the scoring system. And I wound up deciding that the best way to do that was to keep them as individual components. So I now do have the bank component back over here. Really, I don't think that's any different than the way it was. The store components, I started to work on that, but I cut it off. So we'll pick up there. The compromise I added is I have this score reporting component now that whenever the bank changes how much money it has, or how many credits, as I've started to call them, it will emit an event, and there's going to be code in the game class that watches for that event and updates the score accordingly. And then again, the heads up display has moved back over to here, and it just takes a reference to the bank, and it also directly watches that event to update itself. I'm pretty happy with that. I made some other changes as well in a few places. I figured out what the problem with the jumping was, and it wound up being it was exactly the issue I thought it was, but it wasn't happening for the reason I thought it was. In player input, I had in the process function that I was resetting jumping to false every time that got called. I added some debugging, and what I found is that this process method was getting called inconsistently in respect to what order that the player was getting called. So sometimes it would wipe out the jumping field before player could read it, and other times it would wipe it out after player had read it. I'm still a little confused about this because I was under the understanding that the order that process methods were called was fixed, but that didn't seem to be the case. It was sometimes getting called before the player and sometimes getting called after player's process. And that ultimately is what was causing the jumping to not work correctly. So what I've done is now the isJumping method will clear the field whenever you call it. So it's like a status flag where reading it clears it. And that has completely solved the jumping issue. And that also solved the issue where I couldn't jump when I was standing on... Well, actually, there was a second issue I found as well. The second one was in the... I can't remember if it was the landing state or the falling state. I think it was falling state, actually. Yes. This said, if not is grounded. So what was happening is it was rapidly swapping between landing and falling. And that's why you couldn't land on top of the platform. Now, I don't know why it worked when you landed on the main ground and why you could start jumping on that. But if you tried to go anywhere else, it was just constantly flip-flopping between these states because I accidentally put not there. Either way, it is fixed now, and the jumping works, and the scoring works. So I will quickly pop open the game. And, okay, yeah, so a couple other small things I did. I've added a few more textures so that I can actually see what I'm doing. And you can see now when I collect the fruit, it actually does increment the HUD. And I started adding the model for the chair. I did some testing yesterday where I actually had the colliders on this enabled, but for the moment, that's just a placeholder. I did find with the colliders enabled, it's pretty easy to jump on it and then jump on the back as well. So it's a good size. I'm not too worried about that. And I think being this size is about right. If we just look at it from about this distance in relation to the player, it doesn't feel like it's too close to be able to place it. So I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so we got that. The one thing I did start to implement yesterday was the store. So all I've done is I've added a store item that has a thumbnail and a cost, and then an array of those items, a reference to the bank, and what I hope should allow me to select the items. So the idea here is that the HUD is going to hook into the selected item changed and some other signals to detect whenever whatever's selected is modified. And yeah, that's pretty good so far. I'm not too worried about this, although it occurs to me, I guess I don't really need this get selected item. If selected item change, well, either way, let's see. Now, what I'm thinking is that the chair is going to basically just be a scene that doesn't have any colliders, and then I think and this is basically like the mesh, and then I think I'm going to create a separate scene that is the chair with the mesh, or with the colliders, and that'll be the actual game object. And then what I'm thinking of doing is attaching this model to the store item as additional metadata, and then whenever you're cycling through the items, it's just going to load the mesh and not do anything else. That way I don't have to worry about holding something that's being potentially physics simulated and having it attached to the player and all the wonkiness that can come from that. So it'll be like a separate non-physics object that I don't have to worry about collisions or anything. So, first things first, this change selected item. Well, I guess realistically, first thing I should probably do is actually implement the logic to place the chair, and then we can worry about the logic to swap between them. Okay, so in here, we're going to add an export variable, and we're going to say, I don't know, placeholder scene or something. And we'll do that as a packed scene. Okay, and then in the store itself, and remember the store is actually a 3D object, so the item is going to get placed wherever the store is in the world. And since the store is attached to the camera, that's going to make that always in front of where the player is. So let's see. I think first off, we're going to need ready. And what we're going to want to do is I'm going to have a function for update held item. And sorry, you can hear the keyboard. Unfortunately, this mic only works if I have it directly over the keyboard. Okay, so what's going to happen here is it's going to take whatever item is currently selected, and it is going to load the packed scene. I think in the full thing, I probably want to preload the scenes so that I'm not, and just hide them. But for now, we're just going to try and load it. Okay, so I'm going to say get the packed scene. Now, this can be null, so if item does not equal null, then we are going, or actually better yet, if item equals null, we're just going to return. Okay, so now what I need to do is load the scene. So we're going to do item dot placeholder scene instantiate we're just going to say that's a node, and we're going to make the assumption that it's always a node 3D. And then we're going to add child. I guess actually one thing I'm going to need is some sort of container. It's easier to clear objects from a child than it is to try and hold a reference to them. So we're going to have a placeholders, and we'll just make that a node 3D. Oh, I'm going to do that in enter tree. And then we will add the child. Oop. Okay. And I also want to call update held item here in ready. Okay. So now we're going to do placeholders.add child. Okay. Now let me go into the player and into the store. Oh, there's the store. And we're going to make an item. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this under resources. So we're going to do items. And we're going to create a new resource, and we're going to do a store item. And we'll just call this a chair. And we'll load that in. We'll leave cost at 0. We'll leave, well, actually, I'm going to load. I think image is the wrong class I'm thinking of. Let me change that real quick. I think image texture might be what I was thinking of. Or is it texture 2D? Ah, yeah, texture 2D is what I was thinking of. There we go. I was gonna say image didn't sound right. I thought it was. Yeah, there we go. Now I can do my placeholder texture. Not that that really matters. I don't have anything reading it yet. Okay. So get selected item is not going to have anything selected by default. Okay, so I'm going to add a pre-check. So if selected items is less than 0 and items.size is not empty, then selected items index equals 1 or equals 0, I should say. That way it'll force it to a valid item whenever you call that. Or actually, I'm going to call this method to force it. Okay, so if it is empty, that goes... Okay. Change selected item. Let's see. So if this is -1... Actually, I've got an idea for this. I'm going to move this code up actually into here. Okay, so we know it's not empty. Okay, so if selected items is less than 0, then we're going to set it to 0. Okay, so if it's empty, we return -1. If it's not empty, then we just set it to 0 and then run that like normal. So I should be able to do... Well, yeah. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do here is just call that, and we'll say true 0. It's a little bit hacky, but I think that'll work. So that should spawn in the item. I'm only calling update held item in one place though. It didn't do anything, unfortunately. Interesting. Let me double check to make sure that I actually have the store in front of the camera and not behind it. Let me move it a little further back. Make sure it's not like in my face or something. No? Okay. Interesting. What have I done wrong here? Greater than or equal to 0, and it's less than the size. I think that's getting called some... Oh, you know what it is? I know exactly. Doubting myself here. It's because I didn't actually add it to the array. That'll do it. Okay, and we get an error. Oh, yeah, that'll do it. Okay, there we go. Oh, wow, that is really far out. Okay, yeah, that is a bit further out than I intended. Let's bring that back quite a bit. Oh, there we go. That's way better. I suppose I actually, if all of the chairs are static, then I suppose I could just keep the placeholder as the main item. But I'm not entirely convinced right now that that's what I want to do. I do feel like some of the chairs should be non-static. I don't want to lock myself out of that. But yeah, so far this is working. That looks good. The lighting's all handled. Now, normally I'd be worried about the fact that this thing can clip through the geometry. And normally that's something you have to be worried about with first-person games. But in this case, because this is a physically simulated thing in the... Well, it's intended to be physically simulated in the environment. I don't actually want that behavior. Now, the question is, do I allow the item to be just placed anywhere? So with Cookie Clamber, I had a really rudimentary system where if you looked at the floor or a wall, it would try to push the item in your hands back to stop it from clipping. And it wouldn't let you place it otherwise. Well, it just would push it back, but I don't know that I really want that here. I kind of want these to clip a little bit. And I think I might add in a system where the chairs can be maybe like a bounding box around it. But I think that's a good idea so far. Okay, so that works. If I want to do the bounding box, my gut reaction is to have the placeholder object potentially emit some kind of signal, or I could attach some metadata to it that contains the shape of the bounding box. The shape thing is an interesting approach. I don't know if I really want to do that right now. One thing I do want to do is I want to go ahead and make the actual scene for the chair. So I'm going to just do this as a regular old scene. And we're going to do this as a static body. Or actually, yeah, we'll do it as static for now. I might change that. We'll do that as a box shape, and then we're going to add the child node, instantiate child scene, and we're just going to do chair. Okay. And this is where it would help to have the chair actually be a mesh. I guess I could bake the mesh instance. Yeah, I could, and then I can save that. We'll just call this chair mesh. And then we can load the material. Okay. So now I can actually just do a mesh instance in here. And I can just load that. Okay. And then there are options on the mesh to create a collision shape. And we'll do it as a sibling. We'll have to do try mesh. There we go. So now the whole thing is that. So we'll do chair object or chair prop, I think. And we're going to store this in the, up another directory, into scenes, props, chair. And we'll do chair prop tscn. Yeah. I think that's what I want to do. I think this realistically should be chair placeholder. Okay. And then let me rename that file. Okay, perfect. So now that is a static body. They're both in the same orientation. So the next thing I need to do is go in and modify my store item to add the object or prop scene. Okay. And then I need to add an input mapping to allow me to actually place it. So we'll do place item. I guess we'll call it. We'll just bind that to left click. All right. So now for the moment, I'm just going to put this in the store, but I'm going to move all the input to the player. But for testing's sake, we'll keep it here. And we will just do an unhandled input. If event dot is action pressed, place item. We'll just call place item. And then we'll just go dump that down here. Now, one interesting problem is I don't have a way. Where do I place it? That is an interesting issue. I could literally place it as a child of the store and just set it as top level, so that it doesn't inherit the transforms. I don't really think that's a great option. In past games, I've had a spawner object and there was an auto load that would allow you to get the local spawner for the scene, but I've never really liked that approach very much, so I don't think I want to keep doing that. I think what I would rather do is leverage. I think I'm just gonna have it get the parent of the player, maybe, is what I'm thinking. So on store, we're gonna do root, and we're gonna make that a node. Move that up there. Yeah, okay, we're gonna do that. Yeah, okay. Now we also need to get the position and orientation of the placeholders. I also want another scene, actually, so we're gonna say manipulator. And this is gonna be the scene that you're actually rotating. Okay, so then we'll do that. And then this will be that. Okay, so we're going to get the rotation and orientation of the manipulator. That should be easy enough to handle it. Okay. So now I just need to do this. All right, so we've got the item. Actually put that up there. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll copy that. But we're going to do parent dot add child. And instead of placeholder, we're going to call it prop. Okay, and then we're going to do prop dot global position equals to manipulator dot global position, and then we're going to do prop dot global transform. Actually, I think transform includes position, doesn't it? Includes, contains, represent. Ah, okay, yeah. I just want to do the whole. There we go. And that way it should actually, I can't remember if it's position or global position you're supposed to set whenever you do this. We'll find out. Okay, yeah, we'll see. And let me make sure that the store item attached to the player actually has something. Where are the items? Also going to rename that to chair item. And it does not. I thought so. Is that other thing still called chair.tscn? No, it's okay. I was going to say, I thought I renamed that. Ah, it crashed. Get parent on a null. Oh, yeah, that one's on me. Normally I'd have better error checking for this, but actually, let me see. I think I can do this a different way. I believe you can get I want to check something. I was fairly certain that nodes had a method to get the root of the TSCN file they were saved in. We're going to take a look at that and see if I can find it, because I'd swear there was a method to get that. Find parent, get child, get groups, index, node, get parent, get path. Looking for anything. You know, there is get tree. I might have something. Huh. If this node is inside the tree. First node and group. Yeah, I could use groups for this as well, but we're going to keep it simple. Ah, there we go. Ah, and it's working. This looks like some 90s surreal wallpaper art going on now. Okay. And let me see. Can I actually walk on these? Yes. Okay, they are actually physically in the space. I will say the one problem I'm already kind of seeing. Ah, there we go. Wrap it up. We got a game. Okay, first things first, let me come in here and get rid of the placeholder chair. Yeah, I was going to say, the one problem I'm already seeing is it's very difficult for me to see where the chair actually is in 3D space. That is, because like, is this closer or further? Might want to up the friction on these a bit. The other thing is because there's not really any shading, I can't tell the direction it's facing. Aw, can I not jump up on that? Come on. Come on. Ah. My bounding box is a lot lower than I thought it was. Let me do that instead. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if it wouldn't be a good idea to have these be rigid bodies that just fall for a split second and then turn off and go to sleep permanently so that they act like rigid bodies. Okay, let me see. What does the physics material on this look like? Because it's very slick. It is maxed out at 1. Let me sweat it to rough. See if that helps. Not sure that did. Yeah, I'm finding it a little fiddly to actually jump on these things right now. That is one problem. See, I'd expect to be able to walk up that. Let me look at the player settings here. Floor, stop on a slope. Yeah, I want stop on a slope. Max angle. Let's try 60 degrees for the max angle. See if that helps. Yeah, that does help. I was gonna say that feels a little too slippery. Yeah, that's more what I'd expect. That feels much better. Yeah, okay. For better or worse, my perception of what feels good for this is kind of based on Halo 3 Forge, because that's the only other game I know of that has this kind of freeform physics placement. And Halo, you have very sticky feet. You can walk up shockingly steep inclines. Yeah, there we go. That's feeling more like it. I can actually start to climb now. But definitely I need to add in the ability to rotate the manipulator. I will say this is a good sign. My judgment for whether or not Whoa. That was interesting. Oh, interesting. You can launch yourself off these. Huh. I don't even think that's a bad thing. That's kind of cool. Yeah, there we go. This is definitely starting to feel really cool. And I'm going to be honest, I'm almost tempted to leave the checkerboard and the textures because there's something really surreal about the just Windows XP clouds in the checkerboard and the low resolution. It feels like something you'd see on the picture of a trapper keeper or something. Yeah, this is actually pretty... This feels pretty good. I'm actually really happy with that. I think I've got this dialed in pretty well already. I'm actually not too worried about people phasing the chairs into the ground or into other chairs. Because like I said on the first day, part of the appeal of stacking chairs is that you can kind of interlock the legs. And I could go through a whole mess to try and figure out how to do that and physically simulate it. But I don't think it would work well in a game engine. It would get very unstable very quickly, I think. So I think this is a good compromise. And because the chairs are going to cost money to place them, it's not like you can just build yourself a smooth road all the way to the top. I'm going to have to tune the economy, but that shouldn't be possible. Oh, good. And it looks like you can't fall through the legs. That was something I was worried about because I imported I generated the collision mesh. Yeah, you do kind of do the little physics hop thing. I think that's because you're a capsule collider. You kind of accelerate up the edge of the chair. Yeah, you can technically jump stack. Yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. Honestly, the distance for placement feels pretty good too. Like the chairs feel like really goofy how they're placed. I did also, I was out to lunch today, dreading how much time I have left. And I did think up a name. I don't want to say it just yet, but it's equally stupid and I think really clever for this game. So we're going to roll with it. And honestly, all I need to do now is just implement the different types of chairs. And actually make it so that they cost money, add the manipulator, and then build the tree. And that's pretty much the game. So I'm feeling pretty good about the amount of work I have left to do. I was a little bit worried initially that I might be over-scoping the project some. I always get worried about that in jams, but I think I've done pretty good on this one. Some of the jams I've done, I've had to basically work every waking hour and not sleep for an entire weekend. And this is one of the few times I think I've actually scoped it correctly. I wonder, I might do something like a Sonic Green Hill Zone thing where like the ground is checkerboarded, but it's just green. Or like Sonic / Banjo-Kazooie kind of thing. All right. I'm feeling pretty good about that. The manipulator for actually being able to move these is going to be interesting. One idea I had was to either use the arrow keys, but the main idea that comes to my mind is to hold right click and then to drag the mouse. So I'm going to have to add, this is why it has to be hooked into the player script, because whenever you have right click down, I need to disable movement of the camera and instead just enable tracking changes to the rotation of the object. And my thought is, you can do pretty competent rotation if you make all of the rotations relative to the way the object looks to the camera. And I'll start to... I've never tried to do that, but I know games that do it that way, so it's going to be a little interesting to code. I'm going to take a quick break though, and whenever I get back, we will get started on that and then implement the actual cost of the items. All right, and we're back. Okay, so what I was getting at was that there are 3 axes of rotation, right? There's X, Y, and Z. But if you're using the mouse, you only really have 2 axes of rotation if you're just going off of its movement. So one way you can get around that is taking advantage of the fact that you can rotate it partially in one axis, move it partially in another axis, and then if you rotate it again in the first axis, you're now moving it in a different one. But that relies on the fact that you're rotating it, not rotating the, well, if you're always rotating it based on global, it doesn't work that way. I'm saying it out loud, and now I'm starting to question it, but we'll try it out and see if what I'm describing is actually even remotely true. Okay, so first things first, I need to go into player input and move object placement. So var placing object will equals false. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing we did with jumping. I actually don't think it's really necessary to do this here. I could have also used signals for this, but okay. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to say elif event.is action pressed place item. Yeah, I'm going to actually say is placing item instead of object. And we'll say item. And item. And item. And then we'll add our method here, our function. Okay, now that's added. All right, and now we need to go back up to player. Well, actually, we need to go into store. I'm going to add just a function called buy item. And all we're going to do at the moment is just call place item in it. Eventually that'll need to check the bank and that, but we'll worry about that in a minute. Okay. So then in player, probably in just process, I'm not going to worry about this in physics process. We're going to say if where input dot is placing item, then we will call store dot. Oh, I don't think I have a reference to the store component. We'll quickly add that. Now I didn't call store a component because it's realistically, like, it technically is, but it's not in the traditional sense. Components I tend to think of as being things that can be reused across multiple objects, but the store really isn't that. Okay. Actually, it occurs to me I need to come in here and remove this code. Okay. Now let me make sure that this is working. Yep, okay. So can place items. Perfect. All right. So now figuring out the rotation, let's look at player input and see what I'm doing here. So I have a vector of mouse movement, which is coming from input. And we're getting screen relative input. Okay. Where, okay, so movement amount and look amount is coming from get look amount, which is coming from here. Okay. And this is zeroing that out though. So zeroing out the mouse movement, I might want to change that. So let me add a new thing for that. So we'll do func reset mouse movement, and all we're going to do here is just this. And we're just going to have to call that up here in process. And now I can do, I don't really want to call it manipulate amount, rotate amount. We're going to call it rotation amount, or item rotation amount. There we go. That makes more sense. And this will have to be a vector 2 because we only have 2 axes here. We'll deal with the rest higher up in the store class. All right, so we're going to start by just copying this, but we're going to rip some of this out. So the sensitivity, I'm going to just hard code that. And also, we're going to delete the part that handles inverting, because I don't think that really makes sense. Okay, so we have the sensitivities. Okay, so we're going to do export var item rotation x sensitivity. You know what? I'm not even going to try to respell sensitivity again. We're going to put it at 0.1. And we're just kind of going in the middle here. 0.15 maybe for y. Okay, so the sensitivities are being calculated there. Make sure I do this in the right one. And yep. Oh, actually, hold on a minute. Oh yeah, that would not work. Yeah, okay. I need a temporary variable here. We're gonna do that. And then we're gonna do that and that. And do the same thing here. There we go. Okay. Nope. Did I make this? Yes, I made this void. Vector 2. There we go. Okay. So now this should work for that. And then now the store needs some kind of code for this. realistically, the store is probably should be what owns, well, we're gonna add in here the rotation. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say func rotate held item. I'm gonna do rotation vector 2. Well, we'll say rotation amount, so we're not using the same variable name. And then we'll go quickly back into player really fast, and we're going to do player input dot item rotation amount, and we're going to do store rotate held. Oh, I need to save this first. Rotate held item, and we'll just shove that there. There we go. And actually, we'll do that. Yeah, I don't think the order is really going to matter that much there. Okay, so now in here, we need to grab a reference to the manipulator. And we're going to do rotation. And let's just try doing something really simple. And we'll see what happens. I think right off the bat, this probably isn't going to work. Oh, well, first and foremost, that needed to be plus. Second, that's only supposed to do that when the button is held down. So let me add another input for rotate item. Okay. So now what I'm going to do in here is we'll say actually, I think we'll just do it as part of this because it'll kind of always be running. Okay, so we'll do if input dot is action is action pressed, rotate item. Well, we'll say if not, return vector 2.0. All right. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I can already tell that is not working exactly as intended. But we're getting closer. So we'll add another thing for rotating item. Bool equals false. And we'll do elif and do that, and we'll do rotate item. Rotating item equals true. Okay, and then we'll add another thing here for is rotating item. Actually, I don't really need that for this. I'm just going to directly return whether or not it's down. I think that was kind of overkill for that, so we're just going to do return that, and then I can just call the same thing in here. And then in player, I can just say, where is the capture mouse? Update head orientation. Actually, you know what I can do? I can just toggle that in here because that is a toggle. Yeah, okay, so we'll just say if rotating item. And I'm just going to make that an internal thing. I guess that was actually already in the right place for that. Yeah, perfect. So now I don't even need to test it. Yep, okay, perfect. That locks it in place. Okay. Well, one thing's for sure, the sensitivity is way too high. So let's fix that. So we're gonna make that 0.5 and 0.1. Yeah, it's still pretty high. It's definitely more manageable now. Okay, so yeah, that does not work. Exactly as intended. So the issue is that rotation is relative to the object. So if I move the mouse side to side right now, it flips back and forth. But as it moves slightly up, it rotates it in a different direction. So it's still moving it. As I move it side to side, it's still rotating it, flipping it like that. If I move it up though, to where it's sideways, and then I move it side to side, yeah. So it's local to its own coordinate system is the problem. I don't really want it local to the world though, because then if I look in different directions, it's going to not. Yeah, so let me try that. I'm pretty certain I already know what's going to happen, but if I come in here and do global rotation instead, I think I'm going to run into a very different problem where depending on the direction I'm looking, it rotates differently. Oh, it actually just freaks out. I think I got gimbal lock right there. Yeah, it's like gimbal locked. That wasn't what I was expecting to have happen. Oh, weird. That is really strange. I'm not actually sure what's... I think it might be gimbal locked. Hard to tell. Yeah, that one's pretty strange. Huh. Yeah, that's actually kind of a weird one. Yeah, that's not what I wanted either. I'd also say I think these are backwards, so I think I want that to be Y and this to be X. So I need to do some transformations here, likely relative to the player. Transforms always get me. Gotta love linear algebra. Okay. So I think I need to multiply the transform by the camera transform, which would be the store itself, actually, I think. Well, not the store. Yeah, okay. What comes to my mind would be... Alright, you know what? Let's just try it. So I want the transform of the camera, I think. So let's try and get viewport.get or get viewport dot camera 3D dot global transform. Now these have a basis, I believe, right? Yeah. Basis is composed of 3 axes. Yeah. So I want the basis. And what can you multiply a basis by? Let's see. You can multiply it by a vector 3. Or you can multiply it by a float. I think multiplying it by a float is for scale, though. Could be wrong. Multiplies yeah, it multiplies the basis. That's not what I want. Yeah. Okay, well actually let me take a step back and let me think about this. It might be possible to get away with this in a simpler way if I just have more wrapping objects, basically, that just hold the thing in place. The thing is, if I rotate it 90 degrees, so left and right, I want to adjust the Y rotation. And if I do that, then moving left and right on the mouse, I always want the object to rotate in front of me. Moving up and down, I always want it to rotate in if we looking forwards, that would be my x-axis by going up and down. Yeah, so I think this is right. Y on the mouse is the up and down. X is the side to side. Yeah. But I always want those rotations to be relative to the angle the camera is looking at the object. So yeah, I think that basis is correct. Let me try making a vector 3 for this. Okay, so let me do vector 3 rotation. I forget, do you multiply, is it the basis first or is it the vector first? So that one takes a basis on the right. Multiplies each... Wait. Where is that? What? Where did that go? Okay. Inversely transforms the vector by the under the assumption that the basis is orthonormal. Man. I really wish I have practiced linear algebra more since college. Okay. Let's try something. We're going to do rotation amount equals that. And then we'll try it the other way as well. I'm actually pretty certain this is not going to do what I want. But either way. Oh, right. That's a vector too. Yeah, okay. All right, rotation amount 3D vector 3 equals vector 3, and we're going to do rotation amount dot y dot x and then 0.0. There we go. And then we're going to use rotation amount 3D. Actually, we can just use, what is that, a vector? That is a vector. Okay. So we can just use plus equals. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's not quite right. Okay, so side to side is working as intended. Yeah, but see, when I rotate it, so side to side, that's intended. But see, now when I rotate it side to side looking down, it's not turning side to side. This is not, in my mind, the direction it rotates, I guess the direction that rotates is always the same. Yeah, I mean, that kind of works. That's sort of what I want. But see, now moving it up and down makes it rotate side to side. Yeah, that's definitely not right. It's also still way too sensitive. I knew this was going to be a problem. I'm going to bring that down a lot. I'm going to just divide those. Okay. Yeah, that, I mean, that does help quite a bit. Like, you can make it work, but it's not great is the problem. And it's very, I feel like I'm just sort of randomly moving the mouse and hoping that it does what I want. Even though there is technically consistency to what it's doing. Like, I want it to just come down, but no direction I move it makes that happen. That's definitely problematic. Okay. So it's sort of on the right path, I think, but not quite. But I do think the sensitivity definitely makes more sense now. All right, let me try it this way and see if that makes any difference. I think I know of a way to make this do what I want, but it's going to be a little frustrating to implement. Okay, so if I look down and I go side to side, that is just going in every direction. Same thing with that one. Yeah, that's just not intuitive what it's doing. Okay. Jeez, I'm being attacked by my vacuum. Ah, get out. Extreme snipe by a vacuum cleaner, jeez. Okay. I think there is a way to do what I want, but it's kind of strange. One option is I can add an extra object that always points upright, or that its transform is always pointing upright. And then if I rotate that, because let me go into a sprite and kind of draw what I'm thinking. So if we think of, let me double check, what colors does Godot use for X, Y, and Z? Z is blue, X is red. Okay. Okay. So what I want is that no matter what direction you're looking, oh, that is massive. So this is the Y, right? And then the X is the one that's like that. I want, no matter what direction you're looking, for this always to be the orientation. So when you move the mouse side to side, I always want that to rotate the object there. And whenever you go up and down, to always rotate it that way, and no matter what direction you're looking. The problem is if you rotate the object 90 degrees and then you turn this, it screws it up, which is, I think having nested objects might help it. Then again, it might not. So somehow I have to say, when you rotate it, ignore the rotation of this axis and still rotate it this way. So, how on earth do I do that? You know what, actually, let me try something else too. I'm just gonna Hail Mary something right quick. I don't think this is gonna work. All the mathematicians are gonna laugh at me, but I'm gonna Hail Mary this too. Yeah, nope, that does not work. That freaks out, actually. Anytime I mess with global rotation, it seems to really not like that. It seems a lot more prone to gimbal lock. So yeah, the rotation always needs to be relative somewhat to the camera. So if I'm looking down, I want the Y rotation, this one, to still be the same. It's always rotating the object as if the Y axis was pointing straight up. And this should always be rotating the object as if the X axis was across my screen. Okay, I think I'm starting to get an idea now for what I need to do. Okay. I will say, I'm going to give this a cutoff and say that if I don't have something by, we'll say like 4:30, I'm going to call this okay. And I might revisit this off stream because I may need to really sit down and think critically about this for a while. Transforms are definitely not my forte. Or bases and quaternions and that have always given me headaches. But I saw in here, there was an option on basis for direction, I think. Yeah, looking at. Creates a new basis with rotation such that the forward axis points towards the target position. By default, the Z axis, camera forward, is treated as forward, while staying perpendicular to the forward axis. Okay. So if I get the basis of, would it be the manipulator? And then I rotate it to look at. Okay, let's try that. I may even need two different ones. We'll see. Okay. So let me get the manipulator's basis. Well, actually, it might be the camera basis now I think about it. Okay. So let's get the camera basis dot looking at, and up is just going to be vector 3 dot up, or no, target, and then okay. So the target what would that be? The target would be looking in the same direction as the camera. But at the same height as the camera. Okay, so let me say what would that would be the position of the of the store, I think. And yeah, I do think this does need to be global rotation, actually. The more I think about it, if you use local rotation, that's probably not going to do what I want. Okay. Let me see. Is that even remotely what I want? No. Like, that's actually extremely confusing. I'm not actually entirely certain what's happening there. Yeah, it's every time I mess with global rotation, man. Okay. Okay, so let's not do global rotation. I'm certain this isn't going to work, though. Yeah. I have no idea what that's even doing now. It's just all over the place. Okay, let me try something different. Let me use the global transform of this thing instead. Okay, so we're using the global transform of my own object. And we're looking at that's not going to work because it can't look at itself. Okay. So if I do get viewport dot camera 3D dot global position, and then I reverse that, that might do what I want. Why is it mad about this line? What about this line do you not like? Now we'll just run it and get the warning. Wait a minute. Hold on. That definitely feels better. Oh, what is this? Oh. Okay, well, I don't need that. Called from an instance. Target vectors are collinear. Wait, seriously? Looking at is static? Oh, it is static. Okay, well that does not do at all what I thought it did then. So that explains part of why that wasn't working. Okay, so points towards the target position. And I guess I can just use its global position. One thing I do want to try doing though is multiplying that by vector 3. And we'll do 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Make that 1. If that works. Okay. Nope, still has the same problems. Okay. That already takes vector 3 up. Yeah, I still don't... It's weird because moving it right and left makes it rotate, but moving it up and down also makes it rotate in the same axis, which is kind of throwing me here. Yeah, that is very confusing. For curiosity, let me try inverting that. Okay, well that feels better. Actually, that also needs to be inverted. What the heck? What? How is it still moving in the opposite direction? What? Come on. What? Really? Oh, it's probably that one. Oops. Okay, try that again. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, this just isn't at all what I'm looking for. Whenever I look down, I don't want it to rotate relative to the camera. Let me try zeroing this out for a moment and... Oh, actually... I'm going to copy that and I'm going to zero this out. Okay. Yeah, see, now it's going off in every random direction, which really doesn't make sense. Okay, see, if the chair is angled like this and I'm looking down... Okay, yeah. I think I see part of the problem too is that the manipulator isn't always facing up. That actually might solve a lot of my problems. Making it top level wouldn't necessarily solve that. But let me try something here in process. Actually, I'm going to do it in physics process. I'm going to try manually resetting the manipulator's angles. So rotation, and this would be global rotation dot x equals 0.0 and z equals 0.0. There we go. Okay, yeah, that's part of what I was hoping for. Yeah, so as I look up and down, it's like the chair is being moved above and below me. That's what I wanted. And then what I'd want is if I move the mouse left and right, the chair would spin on its axis, but it's not really. I'm not entirely certain what it's doing. Well, actually, I do know. It's because it's getting... The manipulator is fighting the rotation. Okay. So that's a start. So let me see if there's something I can do to stop. I think I do need another level. I think that's part of my problem. Okay. That also occurs to me. Where is on player? Where am I moving this? Rotate held item is happening. Okay, I'm gonna move that into the physics process. Okay. All right, well, that's kind of doing what I intended. Although I think it's only doing it because these two functions are desynced. But like that is what I want. Left and right, rotates it left and right. And so that's always global. It's always global. Yeah. So the left and right rotation should always be with the y-axis pointing straight up, no matter what angle I'm looking at it. But it keeps its relative rotation to me, which it's doing right now. But now the X rotation should always be relative to the camera. So it should always be rotating on its X axis as if the Z axis was facing the same direction as the camera Z axis. And since the camera is facing down the negative, then the model should always be rotating on the X as if it's facing down the negative. That's what I want to happen. I suppose I could also make it so that you can't rotate the chairs in the other axis. I could just call it here and say it's done. If I can't get it to work, I may actually just do that. I don't know. It's not as funny seeing the chairs rotated at every random angle, though. Yeah, it's just not as funny. And it doesn't look as surreal as having the chairs off in every random direction. This definitely does work, though. I am finding one thing that's a little strange is that I feel like my feet are lower than they are. Or they feel lower than they look. So I feel like I'm constantly hitting the edges of these chairs when I try to jump, which is definitely throwing me off a little bit. I think that might have to do with the FOV of the camera and how high it sits. I might want to shrink the player a little bit and adjust the FOV, or maybe just adjustments to the FOV might help, because this is really weird. I feel like I'm constantly dragging my feet on the chairs. But this definitely would work. I will have to figure out a system to reclaim all the chairs, though. It does occur to me. I think probably what I'll do is I'll just have the store remember everything you've purchased and just have it refund the money, and then just put the chairs in a group that gets deleted, as opposed to having the chairs listen for the refund signal and try to refund the money themselves. Yeah, I'd say this is starting to work at least. It's just it is kind of fun to take a step back though and realize just how absolutely stupid this game idea is. Just, yeah, I'm farming fruits by placing random chairs in the middle of the air. Perfectly normal game jam experience. Nothing weird going on here. Yeah, I mean, this is, and that's kind of working, but okay. So theoretically, I don't think I even need this here. I think I can literally just use that. Right? Yeah, I can literally just do that. Okay. Yeah, so if I wanted to do that, I can. I mean, yeah, already this definitely helps a lot. This is a good backup plan in case I can't get the rotation to work as intended. Because the fact that you can rotate the chair so that the back catches you already makes this a lot more doable. Because you can kind of build stairs this way. Yeah, okay, that is starting to look a little surreal again. What a weird game. Okay, so one thought I have is that I could make a second manipulator node that that sits inside the main manipulator. The only problem is, how would it ignore the rotation? I think I'm going to call this yaw, by the way. So we'll do that. And okay, so then we'll add yaw here. We'll move that up there. So now I need to move pitch. And I guess actually I could just do .y plus equals this. I think that'll work too. All right, let me just double check that that still works as intended. Yep, okay. So the pitch is going to be the Y. But now this one's interesting because I have to rotate everything basically, because the rotation has to be relative to it has to take into account the model's current rotation, yeah, this is the problem with zeroing out the angles. The alternative, the smarter way of doing this rather than just zeroing these out, would be to apply your rotations in a way that you don't need to zero them out, that you maintain the intended rotations. Okay, so I've made the changes to the rotation. Let me try something. Let me actually just go in here and do placeholders dot rotation. And this would be x equals pitch adjust, or plus equals pitch adjust. I'm curious what that's going to do. Yeah, okay. That's not surprising. Okay, so... Oh. Yeah, sure enough, that fixed it. So forwards and backwards is still forwards and backwards in every direction. Rotation is still rotating it in every direction. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was literally that simple. I feel dumb. Okay, so we're gonna call this the yaw manipulator, and then we're gonna add a second one for the pitch manipulator. Okay. And actually, I don't think I need to mess with those. I think that'll actually just work fine the way it is. And then this would be the pitch manipulator. This is what I get for overthinking transforms again. Okay, so that's the pitch manipulator, which I need to create up here. All right, and then I need to do yaw manipulator dot add child pitch manipulator. Okay, and then this would be placeholders dot global transform. Yep, sure enough. The only thing I don't love is that the pitch manipulator changes with your... I definitely feel like, though, that I can control this easier, though. Yeah, I definitely feel like I have full control now. The sensitivity feels a little bit off. Let me try one other thing, though. Let me try coming into here, and let me change the pitch manipulator. And we would do... Hey, what is that gonna do? Yeah, okay, so I thought you can't. Yeah, the issue I have is that the pitch, whenever you look up and down, the pitch is doing some funky stuff, which I don't love. This might actually do what I want, though. All right. Ha! Okay, that's what I wanted. Yeah. So I did need to keep that. So if I rotate that like that, and I look up and down, Yeah, perfect. Yeah, okay, there we go. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to have happen. The only problem I'm still having is depth perception, and I've run into the same problem. This is the same issue I had with maximum voltage. Is that I can't tell right now, is that chair close? Is it far away? Evidently it was close, and I find that very difficult to help gauge. It's like the scale of the objects is almost lost as you're moving them around. And I think it's because of the vertex lighting. So I'm kind of curious. If I come in here and I find the vertex lighting override, and I disable the vertex lighting, and we restart Godot. And it always loses its... I don't know why Godot does this. It always loses my size of the window every single time I restart it. Okay, whatever. Good enough. Okay, so now vertex lighting is now off. Yeah, I'm not sure that necessarily helped a ton. Oh, yeah, it kind of helped. Oh, actually, I think there is still something wrong with the manipulator. I'm realizing if you rotate it this way and push forwards, it does a front flip. If I turn it and rotate it forwards, now it's doing a back flip. Okay, well that's still not exactly right. It's definitely better than it was, but also I don't know. I do feel like I maybe have a little bit better sense of depth now than I did. It might not be a good idea to use vertex shading for this then. Because like, yeah, I could tell that that one was too far away. Okay. All right. Well, that's something. So I'm seeing a lot of stuttering. I tried turning on physics interpolation for the camera, but I'm finding, or not for the camera, for the actual physics object that the camera's in, but I'm finding that's not really working. And every time I've tried this with Godot, with using the physics interpolation option, it has not worked. And I still see the jitters. Because if I move like this, I don't see any jittering. But when I walk around, I see a lot of jittering. And I think that has to do with the physics interpolation. But the problem is I've tried turning it on for every physics object and every node that's under a physics object, and it never works. And I don't understand what I'm doing wrong with it. I suspect it has something to do with where I'm updating the camera movement. It might be bypassing the interpolation. But either way, I've never really gotten any comments about that being an issue, but it is something I want to fix. Okay, I'm going to log a bug about the rotation being off whenever you look in a different direction, but I would say that for the most part that's handled. So X rotation, item X rotation inverts when rotating in the Y. Okay. I would say that the grabber is done now, the manipulator, whatever you want to call it. I still have a lot of gameplay stuff to get working. All right, so now with the store, I need to implement the actual purchasing logic. So I'm going to go to my chair item, and I think I'm going to make these worth like 15 to start. We'll just see, or maybe 10. And then we're going to go into the store, and whenever you go to buy an item, we're going to check. We're going to get the selected item. Also in place item, delete that. Let's see, we're going to just take an item here, and we're going to move that up. Okay, now if item dot cost is less than or equal to bank dot, well, actually, I believe the bank has a specific thing for this, right? Use credits. Yeah. And that returns true, right? If amount is greater than or equal to 0. Wait, what? If amount, update total. If amount is greater than or equal to 0. Shouldn't that be and? Or the absolute value. Oh, right. Update total takes a negative number. That's correct. Use credits. That needs to be inverted. That's what's wrong. Or it's less than or equal to, yeah, okay. Yep. Oh, looks like the stream dropped for a second there. Seem to be back now. Okay, so yeah, I can't place that. And all right, so let me come into the fruit, and on the credits component, let's have it give you 100 credits. Okay, we get 100 credits. And yep, okay, now I can spend them. All right. Yep. Okay, perfect. That probably feels like too many, but all right. I probably need some UI signals for that, but I'd say for the most part that solves that issue. So the next point I need also occurs to me that was 1435. And that I think stopped at, or no, that was right. That was 235. Trying to keep an accurate recollection of my time for planning for future games. I think I stopped at about 3 a.m. And then today it was like 2 o'clock, I think. And yeah, I'm actually certain it was 2 o'clock. So we started working on the store. Okay. So the next thing is going to be multiple items. So you need the ability to swap through them. I also need screenshots of the items. So one thing I'm going to do is to turn off the grid. And also want to turn off, yeah, the environment. Okay. I'm going to grab a screenshot of this just as a placeholder for the chair. And then we're going to go over into a sprite. And we're going to do a new. Okay. I wish the blue wasn't there. All right, now I need to get this image all the way down to like 16 by 16 or 32 by 32. So we're gonna see what I can do. All right, and we're gonna grab. Okay, perfect. Actually, that deleted a lot more than I wanted it to. There we go. That's what I wanted. And we're going to sample that color. So we're going to grab that color. Yep. All right. Yep. Okay. Now let me trim this. So we're now at 73 by 122. That is still way too big. So let's try scaling it down. Yeah, okay. I mean, that kind of worked. It could help a lot the angle I take the chair at. So like this angle makes it a lot smaller. To be honest, it almost doesn't even matter that much though, because realistically the there we go. Okay. All right, I'm gonna save this into the textures and we're gonna call this chair thumbnail. And we're just gonna direct save it as a PNG. There's really no reason to try and save it as anything else. Okay. So now we're coming here to the chair item. I'm gonna get rid of that and we're gonna grab the chair thumbnail. Okay. And to be able to do the selection, I want to go ahead and hook up the HUD so that this is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And for that, I need some sort of card or the item. And my thought is a card needs to be highlightable so that you can select which one is active. And it also needs to be grayed out or redded out or whatever if you don't have enough money for it. Yeah, I think that'll work. And then probably what I'll do is modify the selection code so that it will only select a chair that you can actually afford. So if you can afford 1 and 2, you can select 1 and 2, but not 3. Okay. So for the card, we're going to go into the heads up display. I'm going to make a new subfolder of that and we're going to call it, I don't know, just store, or we'll call this quick select actually. And then we're going to make a new subfolder in that and we'll call it quick select card. All right. And now we're going to make a new scene and we're going to make this probably a panel container. And I'll worry about theming in a bit. So we'll call this a quick select card. And we're going to set the we're going to do a texture rect. We're just going to temporarily select that. Okay, that's looking good. Now, in terms of graying this out, how could I do that? I could just modulate that image. That'd probably be the easiest route. And in terms of selecting it, I believe that there is a stroke on these style boxes. Is it a style box flat? No. Oh, no, I think it is. So corner radius, we'll do like 4. And it has a shadow. It does have a border. So I could do it with a border, potentially. I could just swap the theme of this item. So I could default it to having... Also, let me change this to keep centered. Yeah. That way the border isn't going to affect it as much. Oh, I could turn draw center on and off. That would work too. Oh, well, I guess that's part of the style box. That wouldn't work as well. So let me see. If I did another... If I just did a panel instead of a panel container... Yeah, the panel is now inside of that. Let me change this actually to a margin container. Okay, so we've got a panel, we have a margin container. Let me try adding a panel container. And put the texture rect under that. And then this panel, if we do a custom style box, and we set the border to like 4, and we make the border color, I don't know, like a golden kind of thing. And then we put it there, and then we disable draw center. Yeah, see, now that can be turned on and off. I guess the default is 3. Okay. And let me actually change that to 2. And now with this thing, if we were to come into it and change it to another flat, and we change its border to like 2, not border, would it be margins? No, that extends it. Oh, content margins, that's what I think I want. Nope, that doesn't do it either. I think I would need a margin container to do what I'm thinking of doing. Okay, so if I change that and I make it 2, and then I put that under it. Yeah, okay, that does what I was thinking of. I mean, the alternative option would just be to change the style of the thing, which is probably the smarter option, because then I can just change the entire box and not worry about it. This is kind of reinventing the wheel here. Yeah, so we do that, and we bring the opacity down a lot, and probably also make it blue. So we'll just save this really quick. It's a display, quick select card. Okay, and then we go into the heads up display, which will move over here. And get rid of that. And get rid of that. Okay, so now in quick select, we're going to create a new scene. And say user interface and say quick select. And we're going to change that type to probably a margin container again. And then we're going to add a HBox container. Then we're going to add instantiate child scene, quick select card. Okay. And on that, we're going to do shrink center, expand. We want shrink center, shrink end. Actually, we probably want fill there. And again, we probably want shrink end. Okay, so now if I come into here and I add a child node or instantiate a child scene, quick select card. Oh, nope, that is not at all what I wanted. Instantiate child scene, we'll do quick select. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let me get rid of some of the chair stuff. Okay. Yep, that potentially works. Let me see how that looks in game. They're kind of big though. Yeah, I think I need that to be smaller. That's a little bit ridiculous. We're looking at some mobile game type stuff with the controls that big. All right, let's resize this down to, I think I was using 24 by 24. And we'll tell it bilinear. Whoa, that didn't do what I wanted. Out of curiosity, let's try 6. Oh no, 16 by 16 is way too small. Okay, let me try trimming it first. All right, we're 30 tall. All right, yeah, that's not going to work very well no matter what I do. Nope, not what I wanted. Okay, let's grab that and move it down and then move it over one. Okay, why did that? Oh, you know what? I know why it got blurry. This is actually something I needed to adjust probably already and just hadn't seen it yet. Oh no, it is set to lossless. Wait, what? If it's set to lossless, then why is it so blurry? What is it doing with the texture filtering? Can I turn that off? Because I do not want filtering enabled on this texture rect. Yeah, it is set to lossless. Actually, let me try something. If I change it to VRAM uncompressed, does that affect it? No. Didn't think so. Why are you... Keep size, keep centered. Alright, well let me actually look at the game and see. Okay, it is smaller now. Oh, I think that's just in the editor. It's like that. Man, that always throws me. I forgot that Godot does that. Oops. Oh, right. I don't have any fruit. That's why I'm not. Okay. Yep, I think that works. So now I need to have it dynamically load the cards based on what's actually been selected. Oop, ran out of chairs. I think it's a good sign though that I'm not intentionally doing that because I'm trying to test something. I just keep wanting to play with the physics and mess around with the chairs, and I think that's a good sign. If you find yourself playing with your own game and goofing around when you're supposed to be developing, I think that's a good sign that what you've got is intriguing. It might not be enough to catch somebody's interest, but it's enough that the core mechanics, I think, are fun to mess with. You've just got to find a way to incentivize the player to actually use them. Okay, so now the quick select, this H box is fine. So I need to add, I'm going to access that as a unique name. And we're going to say this is the card container. And we're just going to delete these. Actually, let me try adding something real quick. If I just add one card, what happens? And then I duplicate. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. All right. So then I'm going to add a script to this. And I am using a script here because I do want to directly access which card is linked. And we're going to do export var, and we're going to do store maybe. Okay, and then we're going to do func ready store dot where is my signal? Selected item change dot connect on selected item changed. We'll do update selected. Update selected card. Okay, so we've got that. And then we need something to actually create the cards. So func create cards. We'll do that first. And we will store some references to that. So I think what I want to do is do a var cards. And we're going to have this be an array of quick select card, which I haven't created yet. I need to go in and actually make this a class. Again, I don't like doing this because this can get very confusing, but this is kind of the easiest way to make this work. Okay. One other thing while I'm here, though, I do need to add the labels for cost. We're just going to hard code that in at the moment. We're going to put that right there. nope, I guess it does need to be on top. And we'll do cost label. We're going to rename this to highlight panel. I think that's going to change, but we'll just keep it like that for now. We're going to shrink begin. Actually, we'll do probably shrink end and shrink end. Okay. And then I need a, we'll say number label. And we're going to do the opposite with this one. We're going to put it up at shrink begin and shrink begin. And also on cost level, we are going to horizontally align right. Okay. And then in here, we're going to do, we'll do number int equals 0. We'll do cost. And we will do thumbnail. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a getter setter here. So set value number equals value. And then we're going to have a callback or update card dot call deferred. And we're going to do that for all of these. Okay. Cost and thumbnail, and we're going to make this function. Make sure I actually spelled that right. Yeah, okay, I did. Good. Yeah, so the reason you have to do that is because the thumbnail or the texture rect won't be there until ready has been called. So if you set these before ready, you can run into some errors. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to grab references to the cost label and the number label. And then also, the other thing I usually do is I will call update card in there. Okay, so cost label equals, I'm going to do $% and %, and we'll use cost. Oh, that needs to be .text. Then number label is going to be equal to str of number. And then on item thumbnail, we're going to do, oh, this should also be private. I think it's just, yeah, it's just called texture, is going to be thumbnail. There we go. So that's all the card will do. And then in here, when we create cards, we are going to get a reference to the store, and for store dot items, or for item in store dot items. Yeah, okay. We're going to create the items. So we're going to do var. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit iffy. And this is why I don't like doing this. I now have to create, because this is using a scene, I need to come over to here, and I actually need to add an on ready. For this quick select card scene. and then you have to construct this differently, which is something I'm really not a huge fan of. Okay, so then I need to do card.number equals, well, we'll deal with that in a second. Card.cost equals item.cost, and card.thumbnail equals item.thumbnail. And then do cards.pushback card. And we're going to do card container add child, and we're going to add the card. And then we're going to do int or var card number int equals 0, or int equals 1, I should say. And we'll put that at the end. Okay. So now the heads-up display should have a quick select attached, but it needs a store assigned to it. Okay, so in here in the heads-up display, in ready, I am going to grab the, or actually an enter tree. Enter tree. We're going to grab the quick select, and we're going to set the store equal to store. Okay, now let's see if this works or if I made horrible mistakes. I made horrible mistakes. Great. Okay. That is assigned there. Node 3D store on a base object of nil. Oh, right, because that hasn't been added yet. Yeah, this is why I don't like doing this. So because the quick select is, yeah. So quick select initializes itself in ready. But you can't set it in enter tree because the children of the HUD, i.e. the quick select, haven't been added yet. So this is nil. But ready is called after all of the children have already been readied. So I don't think you can assign it. I don't think there is another area in the life cycle. Yeah. And this is why I don't love doing this. This is where it starts to get really messy when you're dealing with instantiating scenes instead of classes. All right. Well, then what I need to do, for one, I'm not going to I'm not going to export that. I'm just going to use a setter, and we'll say that store equals to value, and we'll say update cards, or create cards is what we'll call there. Well, actually, we'll do update store. Is what we'll do, and then we'll make a new method called update store that calls create cards. And this doesn't handle what happens if you set the store twice, but we're just not going to worry about that right this minute. Okay, so in the heads up display then, let's see. I can do this in ready. Jam code always ends up so hacky. Yeah, that's also what I figured was going to happen. The text is hilariously too large. But it does at least kind of work. I might also think about adding some coyote time. It feels a little bit wonky that there isn't any. It's not too bad, but it might throw off some players. I think subconsciously I know it's not there, so I don't wait until the end of a ledge to jump. But yeah, like right there, I just tried it and you just fall. Yeah, okay. All right, well, at least functionally that's working. All right, so I need at least one more chair type, which I can realistically just select the same chair and add it a second time as an item. So I can test the ability to cycle through them. But before I can do anything else, I need to add a theme. So we are going to make a themes folder. And we're going to create a new theme and just do default theme. Okay, and then I'm going to go into the project settings and I'm just going to set the default theme there. Okay, and then I'm also going to go ahead and grab a font from my library, and we're going to see what looks good. I need something that's very, very small. So monogram might work. Yeah, it's kind of got some style to it. The numbers are very small. Okay, that's a good option. I do like the Nico fonts, but if I recall, the Nico fonts are all pretty big. I think they're all 16 pixels, which is probably a bit too big for what I want. Yeah, like, and this one doesn't really have much style. I like Nico Paint and Nico Bold, but I don't think that's gonna work very well. I think I'm gonna grab Nico Paint, but what I'm gonna do is probably override the font. So we'll see. We'll use regular. We'll use the TTF. And we'll dump that into a fonts folder. Okay, and then while I'm here, I'm also going to grab Nico Pups. And we're going to use the regular. I might end up using the monospaced version of that one, because I'm thinking this one's mostly going to be used for numbers. And of course, I'm also going to quickly add these to my list of things that I have used, so I don't forget. All of the assets I use, by the way, are Creative Commons or something equivalent, to where giving attribution is not strictly required, but I like to give it anyways. I think everyone should be, get attribution for their work, even if they don't ask for it. Unless they explicitly tell me they don't want me to do that, I would rather give them attribution than have their work go uncredited. I also have a few paid assets as well that I could use if I need to. there's some ambient music that might work well in this project, but we'll see. All right. Well, first and foremost, let me see what the project actually looks like now that I've loaded. Yeah. Yeah, that number's way too big, so we'll have to deal with that. Okay, first things first, so let me go in and add the list here. All right. Okay, so now I need to go into my theme, and I'm going to add a type, or we're going to say quick select card cost. We'll add that as a type, and then we will set the base type as a label. And then in here, we're going to do like a font size. I want to say that Nico is 10 is the font. But we'll use Nico Pups. And then we'll come in here into the quick select card. And this one's specifically for cost. So we'll do the type variation of quick select card cost. All right. And now I'm going to do another one for quick select card number. And we'll do the same thing. You could be a little more general, but I tend to be very specific with the type variations. I think it makes it easier to find where you're using it, especially when you start messing with margins and things like that. It's a little bit harder to be generalized, I find. Not impossible, but actually I'm going to leave that font there, but I'm going to try setting this to 10 and see what happens. Okay, well, a couple things. 10 is clearly not the right size for that theme. Let me try 16 and see if that fixes it. I didn't think it was that big, but it might be. Oh, okay, yeah, it is. Yeah, so the problem I see here is that number 1 is too big. And this also means that I can't have any chair that's more than like 10 or 2 digits. Okay, let me grab a different font, and let me maybe grab, I think Roboto is also small. Maybe not. Let me try Caliday. I think it's too big. Let me try Monogram. I think Monogram is also quite small. So we're gonna grab the just regular Monogram. Okay. Monogram, by the way, I believe that is a font that you can get off of Itch. I believe if you just search for that, you can find it. All right, where am I? I am. Okay. So this is quick select cost. Yep. All right. Let's change that to Monogram. And let's change the size to like 8. I think this is a 10. So some of these fonts are a little bit strange in no, okay, it's not 10 either. I'm gonna keep going up until it works. This is the one frustrating thing with Godot, is that when you're doing really low resolution stuff, the editor does not show you what it's actually going to look like. It shows you, because like you can infinitely zoom into that font. Okay, let me try 11 actually. Some of these are really weird dimensions. I remember one of the fonts I have is a really strange power. It might be 16. Let me see. Yeah, it is 16. That does look potentially smaller than the other one. Okay, let me see what the maximum I can set that to is. So if we come in here to the items, let me try setting this to 100 because 3 digits is about the most I think I would need. Okay, that is doable. Let me see. Is this monospaced if I do 500? Or is that gonna... Yeah, I think that worked. I wonder, is there a credit symbol? Let me look at the font bitmap and see. We'll just look at the basic. I'm curious if they have a credit symbol instead of a $sign. Yes, they do actually. Question is going to be, how do I type that? Might. Well, actually, I say that, but I don't know if... Let me check. Does Pico have that one? If I go to Pico Paint, go to the bitmaps, and where is Paint? Clean, pool party. What am I looking at? Right kit. What is it? Where is that image coming from? Yeah, I don't see that symbol in here. Yeah, that's what I was worried about. Okay. I'm not gonna worry too much about it then. Okay, but it looks like that does work. But then I need to figure out the item select number. So if we go to the card number, wait, what? Okay, let me try 8 on that. That's weird. Why is that not? Did I not set this override? It might be what's going on here is I just didn't set it. Yeah, okay, I didn't set it. Okay, that's not terrible. Let me try 10. And I want to avoid it getting blurred is my one concern. Okay, let me try something on the color. Let me go into the font color, make it white, but I'm going to make it transparent. Okay, that just looks awful. All right, so maybe what I'm going to do then is put the number under it or above it. That might work better. So instead of putting it there, I could put it out here. And I could use... where is my... Oh, there it is. Do shrink center. And I could potentially put... Let's see, this margin container has 2s all around it. I could potentially add another margin container. And just stack these a little bit. And if I put this one on top and I give it like 4 or 5. Why is that doing that? And then I change this to not be as transparent. Yeah, if we do something like that. That's a little bit better. I think it probably would be better not being transparent at all then. Okay, let me try something. All right, I'm curious if we make that orange and then we give the outline size like a 1px outline. Curious what that will do. Not a lot. Why is the outline semi-transparent? I mean, I will say that doesn't look terrible. Although an interesting conundrum is that I can't place anything now. Okay. I think I know what's going on with that. What do you want to bet? It's this thing blocking. Let me come in here to the HUD and find... actually, it might be the quick select itself. Mouse, ignore. I bet my mouse clicks are getting caught by that. No? Okay, if they were, it's not that. Why? What? Why can't I place anything? Okay, I'm going to try hiding the entire quick select now. I have a feeling that is what's happening, but... Oh, no. Oh, no. Duh. I know why I can't place anything. It has nothing to do with that. It's because I increased the cost of the fruit. Duh. Oh, man. The jam's starting to get to me. There we go. All right, there we go. Okay. Yeah, this is starting to look pretty good. It's starting to look at least a little bit more intentional now. All right, so one other thing on the cost, I actually want to make this centered. Do shrink center. Yeah. Okay, why is that? Let me look at this. That's not set to be transparent. Okay, I'm going to increase that width again because yeah, it's like it's trying to anti-alias the text. That's the problem. Can I disable anti-aliasing? I think that is a thing you can do. Let me do label settings. Is there something here? No. Font. Oh, wait, hold on. Is that something you can disable at the font level? I know I've done this before. Aha, yeah, it is something you can disable at the font. None. Re-import. Uh-oh. Oh, okay, good. I thought I just crashed Godot there for a second. Okay. Now let's take a look at that and see what it looks like. Yeah, that's way better. I thought so. Well, other than the different colors of orange being off, this is actually looking pretty good, I think. And I was initially just keeping the orange because those are the colors I always use for my own branding. And it's the colors of this, but I actually think I'm going to keep the orange. It contrasts really nicely with the sky, and I think it'll contrast nicely with the tree as well. Okay. I will say one thing I want to try is coming in here and changing this font to like Nico Pups, maybe. I don't know if I like how defined that is. Let me try. Wait, is the Nico? Oh no, it is actually slightly different. Monogram and Nico Pups are ever so slightly different. Yeah, I don't know if I like how defined like the one is. It's so sharp that it just doesn't look quite right. I think Nico Paint is the better option here. The thing is, though, the most important piece of information is what it costs, not what number it is. All right, let me try something again. What happens if I bring that down to 8? How scrambled is that number going to look? Pretty scrambled. Yeah, okay. Let me try 10 maybe. Yeah, see, part of the problem is because anti-aliasing is off, it's going to look weird if I rescale it. Yeah, okay. Okay, I would say I'm definitely on the right path here, but let me try something else. So in store, I'm going to add a second item, and I'm just literally going to select chair again, and let me make sure that this code works. Yep, okay, you can have multiple items selected. I don't have the code to change the quick select implemented yet, though. Okay. That's weird. Why can I not jump on that chair? Is it really? Is it seriously too high up to reach? Yeah, I might need to tweak the jump height a little bit. That does not feel like that should be... You know, I keep sliding off of it like its collider is... Okay, now I'm standing on it. Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about. Like, I feel really, really tall. Like, way taller than I should be. Like, if I look down, why are my feet that far down? That doesn't really make a ton of sense. All right. Well, all things considered, it's going pretty well. Okay, so the HUD is kind of working. Okay, so now I need 2 different themes for selecting between highlighted items. So let's take a look at the card. Actually, I'm going to take a look at the number. Let me grab this orange. Let's add that to the swatch, and we're going to do a quick select card normal. And this is going to be a style box container, or a panel container, I should say. And we're going to do a new style box flat. And then we're going to come over to here, and we're going to actually look at this thing, style box. Actually, we'll probably just copy it. Delete that. And then we'll just do paste as unique. There we go. But let's see. Where, okay, yeah. Do 3 on the corner radius. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do quick select card highlighted. Actually, we'll just say hover, maybe, or selected. Do panel container again. And we will also paste as unique. But on this one, I'm going to set the border as 2. And the color, we're going to grab from the swatch. Okay. Okay, so we're going to ditch the highlight panel. We're going to ditch that margin container. So that's just the one that pushes everything down. Okay, and then this panel container, we're going to wipe out the customization, and we're going to do normal, and then we're going to try selected. Okay, yeah, see, the problem is the border. Okay, so what I need to do on the normal one is change the border to be the same size. Well, actually, I think I just need to make the content margins. Okay, so we have quick select normal. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. Although I probably will actually do a border on it anyways. So we'll just ditch the content margins really quick. And we'll put in a 2px border. And we'll grab this color. But I'm going to make it darker probably. Okay, so that's the normal one. Oh, that does not look good. What on earth is happening there? Oh, I think, yeah, because they're both semi-transparent. One is overruling the other. Okay, let's desaturate a little bit, bring it a little darker. Let's take a look at that. How does that look? Ooh, that still looks really, really bad. Okay, well, I might need to use the style box texture for this instead, which is fine. That's not the end of the world, but okay, so I need logic to change which one is selected. So on the card, I'm going to add another thing here for whether or not it's selected. We're just going to make that a Boolean, and we'll make it false. And we will say selected. And in here, we are going to say if, okay, we'll also grab that. I need a reference to that. So we'll grab the panel container and we'll say if selected, panel container dot theme, or not theme, dot type, theme type variation equals we'll do quick select card selected. else normal. Okay. So then in here, I am going to change that to just the normal one. Okay, and then whenever I load them, we're going to do that. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a way currently with the store to figure out which one is selected. I have a get selected item. But I don't have a get selected item index. I'll just return that. Okay, so then we'll do var selected item index int equals store dot get selected item index, and we'll do card index and card number equals card index plus 1, and if card index equals selected item index, you know what? We're going to do this differently. We're going to do this in update selected card. Then we're going to go to cards. Cards.selected item index dot selected equals true. So for card in cards, card index actually. Now there are ways you can get around this. You can, for instance, name the card, but I'm not going to bother. Okay, so we're going to say if card index is equal to selected item index, then actually we'll just do this. Selected boolean equals that. There we go. That way it deselects anything that isn't supposed to be selected. And I'm going to put that at the end of this under create cards. Or actually, I'll put that after that. There we go. Okay, that did not do anything. Why did not do anything? Let me add a thing in here and say print. And we're going to put a breakpoint on that. We're going to see if that actually... okay, see, the breakpoint never got called. So update card was never called on one that was selected. So why did that not happen? Why did none of them ever... Card index equals... Okay, well, let's run here. Let's do card index and selected item index, and let's see what happens. Okay, so 0, -1. Oh, I'm an idiot. That's probably part of why it doesn't work. Yeah, okay, there we go. There we go. All right, so now we have a selected item. There is something off though. It's like it's anti-aliasing the entire block. Which isn't great. That's not at all what I wanted, but like I said, I can make these manually, so it's not a big deal. Make the style boxes. I can just use the style box texture with a 9-box rect, and we should be fine. Okay, so I currently don't have a way to change which item is selected, so I need to implement that. So once I implement a way to change the selected item, then I need to implement a way, or implement the other types of chairs. So at the moment, the only type of chair I can really think of would be a spring chair that you bounce off of. Or a really large chair. I'm also still tempted about the idea of having some of the chairs be physically simulated. So one thing is if I come in here to the chair prop, the physics material is just say, okay, yeah. So the only difference there is that's just set to rough. So if I change this type to a rigid body instead, why is that? When used for collision, is intended to work. It will likely not behave well, except when okay, well, we're gonna try it and see what happens. And we'll make this like 2 kilograms. We'll see what this does. I'm not sure. Well, that may be part of the problem. Does this not default? Okay, let me put it on that layer. Yeah, okay. That does seem to not work correctly. That's interesting. I might have to do multiple colliders on this. Yeah, that's not surprising. It just goes right through the ground. All right. So yeah, what is it saying? Concave polygon shape 3D is intended to work with static collision object 3D nodes like static body. Okay, well, that was ultimately just a thought. I can manually create different collision shapes. I've done colliders that are not strictly convex before, so I'm not too worried about that. It just means that likely I can't use that particular the generated collider, which for a chair model isn't really that big of a deal. To be honest, the chair model I have is already kind of like the feet realistically do not need to be separate. But so that's the main thought, is that a chair that is physics simulated as a rigid body so that it falls around, and have that be the cheap chair that you start with. So you kind of have to just pile them up. Then a chair that is that can hover, which would be the really expensive chair, and probably one of the better ones. A bouncy chair, which can get you up higher. And then I'm thinking something like a couch. But I'm also thinking that the couch might hover. Or I might just do that. So physics chair, hover chair, and bouncy chair. But I might also have the bouncy chair hover. Because my thought is that I want to encourage you to have to use the physics chairs. Yeah, okay. So I just need to implement the actual logic, the player commands to swap items. So let me add some stuff to the input map. So we'll say next item, previous item. And we will map those to scroll wheel up and scroll wheel down respectively. And for the moment, I'm not going to worry about the hotkeys just yet, because I'm not sure how many items I'm even going to have. So then all I need to do on player input is just have item up and item down. One thing it does occur to me, my scroll wheel clicks, and I'm not sure what happens if you have a non-clicking scroll wheel. I do have a mouse with a non-clicking scroll wheel. I'm a little bit curious about that, but I'm going to implement that in a minute. I think I'm going to take a few minutes. Well, tell you what, it's about dinner here. I'm going to go ahead and call the stream here, and whenever I come back, we'll finish up implementation of the store, and then we'll start on the other chairs, and then begin building out the actual level and work on some of the polish. Like I said, plan is to work through the night if I can. If I get too tired, I'll call it, but I'm gonna work. I want to get most of the gameplay in tonight, and then we're gonna save tomorrow for the polish in the store. So thanks for coming by and checking out the progress, and I'll catch you later.